I found my daughter shivering in the snow while her husband's family celebrated by the fireplace. My name is Wanda, and at 58 years old, I thought I had seen everything life could throw at a person. As a retired nurse from Minnesota, I prided myself on my intuition, especially when it came to my daughter Lily. We had always been close even after she married Jackson and moved to Vermont. But something had changed in her voice lately. That Christmas morning as I drove through the blizzard to surprise her, I never imagined I would find my child shivering alone in the snow while laughter echoed from inside the warm house. My mother's instinct was screaming that something was terribly wrong. If you're watching this story, please let me know where you're tuning in from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how I carried my grown daughter away from a nightmare disguised as family tradition. I became a single mother when Lily was just 10 years old. My husband John died suddenly from a heart attack, leaving us to navigate life's challenges together. Those early years were difficult, but they forged a bond between us that I believed nothing could break. I worked double shifts as a nurse at Minneapolis General, often coming home exhausted, but always making time to help Lily with homework or just talk about her day. Despite our financial struggles, Lily was a determined child. She excelled academically, winning scholarships that helped ease my burden. I remember the pride I felt watching her graduate as valedictorian of her high school class. Her speech that day brought tears to my eyes as she thanked me for showing her that strength comes from facing adversity head-on. "Mom taught me that when life knocks you down, you get back up and keep fighting," she said to the audience. But looking back now, I wonder if I should have also taught her when to walk away from a fight she couldn't win alone. Our Sunday baking tradition started when Lily was 11. Every Sunday morning, no matter how tired I was from my Saturday night shift, we would pull out my mother's old recipe book and create something together. Apple pie in fall gingerbread, at Christmas strawberry shortcake in summer. Those mornings in our small kitchen, flour dusting our noses and laughter filling the air, were sacred to us both. When Lily left for college at Northwestern, I worried our connection might fade. She was studying marketing on a partial scholarship, working part-time to cover remaining expenses, despite my insistence on helping more. But every Sunday without fail, she would call me at exactly 10 a.m., our baking time. Sometimes she would be in her dorm kitchen attempting to recreate our recipes for friends. Other times, she just wanted to hear what I was making that day. I watched my daughter blossom into an independent, capable young woman. After graduation, she landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm in Chicago. I couldn't have been prouder. Every achievement of hers felt like validation of my parenting choices, of all those nights I'd worked instead of sleeping so she could have opportunities I never had. "You gave me wings, Mom," she told me once. "Now it's my turn to fly." I met Jackson at Lily's workplace Christmas party 4 years ago. He worked in the finance department, and at first glance he seemed like everything a mother could want for her daughter. Tall, handsome, well-spoken, from a wealthy New England family. He charmed me with stories about his childhood in Vermont and asked thoughtful questions about my nursing career. But there were small things I noticed. The way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes when Lily spoke about her latest successful campaign. How he subtly corrected her table manners during dinner. The slight tension in her shoulders when he placed his hand on her back. Nothing concrete enough to justify the unease I felt, just the faintest whisper of warning that I regretfully dismissed as overprotectiveness. Jackson pursued Lily with an intensity that should have been another warning sign. Lavish gifts appeared at her apartment. Surprise weekends at exclusive resorts. Within 2 months, he had effectively taken over her free time. Her Sunday calls became shorter, sometimes rescheduled to accommodate his plans. "He's just so thoughtful, Mom," she would gush. Last weekend, he flew us to New York just because I mentioned wanting to see a Broadway show. The engagement came after only 8 months. The diamond on her finger was enormous. Ostentatious, really, but her face glowed with happiness when she showed it to me over video chat. "Are you sure this isn't too fast, sweetheart?" I asked carefully. "When you know, you know," she replied, repeating what I suspect were Jackson's words. "His family has this beautiful estate in Vermont. We're thinking about having the wedding there this summer." The wedding was an elaborate affair entirely planned and paid for by Jackson's family. I felt out of place among the wealthy guests, but I smiled through it all for Lily's sake. His mother, Eleanor, a thin woman with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and a permanent smile that never reached her cold blue eyes, made several comments about how quaint it was that I had raised such an accomplished young woman all on my own. His father, William, barely acknowledged my existence, dismissing my attempts at conversation with distracted nods before turning away to speak to more important guests. Jackson's sister, Amelia, seemed to view Lily as some sort of competition, continuously making subtle comparisons between herself and my daughter throughout the reception. As I watched Lily dance with her new husband, I silently promised myself that I would support her choices while remaining vigilant. Something about this family didn't sit right with me, but I had raised an intelligent, strong woman. I had to trust that she would recognize any red flags herself. How terribly wrong I was. The changes in Lily happened so gradually that at first they were easy to dismiss. The weekly Sunday calls became bi-weekly, then monthly. She always had a reasonable excuse. Work deadlines, house renovations, social obligations with Jackson's colleagues or family. "Sorry I missed your call again, Mom. The Thompsons invited us for brunch, and Jackson says it's important for his career that we maintain these connections." When we did speak, her once confident voice had a new hesitancy to it. She would pause before answering simple questions as though mentally checking whether her response was acceptable. Our conversations, once flowing easily for hours, became stilted and surface level. 3 times in the first year of their marriage, I made plans to visit, and 3 times Lily canceled at the last minute. Once, because she had suddenly come down with the flu. Another time, because Jackson's parents had decided to visit that same weekend. The 3rd time, because of an unexpected work emergency. Jackson's not hers. It was 6 months before the Christmas incident that I finally managed to see my daughter in person. They had been married for 18 months by then, and Lily had recently left her marketing job because, as she explained, Jackson's career is taking off and he needs support at home. When I arrived at their house, a large colonial in an exclusive Vermont neighborhood that Jackson's parents had helped them purchase, I barely recognized the woman who opened the door. My vibrant, healthy daughter had lost at least 20 pounds from her already slim frame. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her once lustrous brown hair hung limp around her pale face. "Lily, are you sick?" were the first words out of my mouth. "Just been busy," she said with a brittle smile. "Come in, Mom. Jackson will be home from work soon." Throughout that 3-day visit, I watched my daughter startle at small sounds. The ring of a phone, the slam of a car door. She checked her phone constantly, texting back immediately whenever Jackson messaged, which was often. When Jackson arrived home that first evening, he embraced me warmly, asking about my trip and appearing the perfect son-in-law. But I didn't miss how Lily's entire demeanor shifted in his presence. She became almost robotic, anticipating his needs, before he voiced them, laughing too quickly at his jokes, agreeing with every opinion he expressed. During dinner, he criticized the roast she had spent hours preparing. "The meat is overdone, Lily. I've told you before that I prefer it medium rare." "I'm sorry." She immediately apologized. "I can make something else." "No need to be dramatic," he replied with a condescending smile in my direction. She gets so emotional over small things. Later, when I managed to get Lily alone in the kitchen, I asked her directly if everything was all right. Of course, Mom. Why wouldn't it be? She avoided my eyes, focusing intensely on loading the dishwasher. Jackson is under a lot of stress at work. His father expects him to take over the family business eventually, and the pressure is immense. And what about your stress? Your happiness? I pressed. My job is to support Jackson right now, she answered, her voice flat. His success is our success. During that visit, I also met Jackson's parents again. They had purchased a vacation home nearby and came for dinner one night. Eleanor spent the evening making passive-aggressive comments about Lily's housekeeping and appearance. Darling, you really should consider highlighting your hair. The natural brown is so ordinary. Don't you think, Wanda? Of course, good genes help. Amelia has always had the most beautiful natural blonde hair. William spoke about politics, finance, and his son's accomplishments without once asking Lily about her interests or opinions. When she did offer a comment about a marketing campaign she admired, he looked at her as if surprised she could form an intelligent thought. Marketing is just glorified manipulation, he dismissed. Real business happens in finance, right, son? Jackson's sister Amelia arrived late, making a grand entrance in designer clothes. She spent the evening subtly competing with Lily, from commenting on the food, I would have added rosemary instead of thyme, to dropping hints about her recent promotion. Not everyone can be career-focused, of course, she said with a pointed look at Lily. Some women prefer being homemakers. There's value in that too, I suppose. I left that visit with a growing knot of fear in my stomach. Something was very wrong in my daughter's marriage, but she had built walls around herself that I couldn't penetrate. When I tried to express concern about what I'd observed, she became defensive. You don't understand our life, Mom. Things are different in Jackson's world. I'm still adjusting. When Thanksgiving approached, I invited them to Minnesota, as was our tradition. For the first time in her life, Lily declined a holiday with me. We'll be spending it with Jackson's family at their main house. It's expected. The Christmas card I received was store-bought with a generic message and both their signatures. No personal note, no update on their lives as had been our custom. And then came the phone call a week before Christmas that finally pushed me to action. Lily called late one night, her voice shaky. In the background, I could hear raised voices. Mom, I can't talk long. I just wanted to say Merry Christmas early in case I don't get a chance on the day. Lily, what's happening? Are you safe? My heart raced as maternal instinct screamed danger. I'm fine, she whispered. I have to go. He's coming. I love you. The call disconnected. I tried calling back multiple times, but it went straight to voicemail. That night, I made my decision. I would drive to Vermont for Christmas surprise visit, be damned. If Jackson and his family had plans that didn't include me, too bad. I needed to see my daughter with my own eyes. The drive took 6 hours through increasingly heavy snow. Weather reports warned of a developing blizzard, but I pressed on my car packed with homemade Christmas gifts and food. As darkness fell on Christmas Eve, the roads became treacherous, but nothing could have stopped me from reaching my child. I arrived at Jackson and Lily's house around 7 in the evening on Christmas Day. Fresh snow blanketed the neighborhood, pristine and beautiful in that deceptive way winter has of making everything look perfect regardless of what lies beneath. Their house was impressively decorated, professional-looking white lights outlining every architectural feature, an enormous wreath on the front door, and glowing electric candles in each window. Through the falling snow, it looked like a Christmas card come to life. But as I pulled into their long driveway already crowded with luxury vehicles, I felt that same knot of dread tighten in my stomach. Finding a spot to park was difficult with all the cars. I recognized William's black Mercedes and Eleanor's white Lexus SUV from my previous visit. There were several other expensive vehicles I didn't recognize, presumably other family members or friends gathered for Christmas celebration. I gathered my bags of gifts, homemade cookies, hand-knitted scarves, photo albums I had carefully assembled of Lily's childhood, and trudged through the deep snow to the front door. The temperature was well below freezing, the wind cutting through my heavy Minnesota winter coat. I rang the doorbell and waited, stamping my feet to keep warm. No answer came. I rang again longer this time, then knocked firmly on the door. Still nothing. I could hear music and laughter from inside, the sounds of a gathering in full swing. Surely someone should hear the door. After 5 minutes of increasingly frustrated attempts to get someone's attention, I decided to walk around the house. Perhaps they were all gathered in a back room and couldn't hear the front door. As I made my way through knee-deep snow around the side of the house, I passed large bay windows that gave me clear views into the home. The living room was filled with people in festive attire. A massive Christmas tree dominated one corner, surrounded by piles of opened and unopened gifts. A fire roared in the stone fireplace, and crystal glasses of what looked like expensive champagne glittered in everyone's hands. I recognized Jackson standing near the fireplace, one arm casually draped around his mother's shoulders as he laughed at something his father said. Eleanor was elegant in a red dress, jewelry catching the firelight. Amelia sat on a plush sofa surrounded by several people I didn't recognize. The entire scene radiated warmth, wealth, and holiday cheer, but one person was conspicuously absent from the tableau. Where was Lily? As I continued around the back of the house, I heard a faint sound, something between a whimper and a cough. Following the noise, I discovered a small structure at the far end of the property. It looked like a greenhouse or garden shed with glass walls now frosted over with ice crystals. The door was secured with what appeared to be a padlock. Another sound came from inside, and my nurse's instincts kicked in. Someone was in distress. I rushed to the door and peered through a section of glass that wasn't completely frosted over. What I saw made my blood run cold despite the freezing temperature. Lily sat huddled on the concrete floor, wearing only a thin sweater and jeans. No coat, no gloves, no blanket. Her arms were wrapped around her knees, her entire body shaking violently. Her lips had a bluish tint I recognized immediately as a sign of hypothermia. "Lily!" I shouted, yanking at the door handle. The padlock held firm. Her head lifted slowly, confusion clouding her expression as she registered my presence. "Mom." Her voice was slurred, another concerning sign of her condition. "You weren't supposed to see me like this." I looked around frantically and found a heavy garden stone. 3 solid hits against the padlock and it broke open. I rushed inside the unheated space, barely warmer than the outdoors. "Oh my God, Lily, what happened?" I knelt beside her, already removing my coat to wrap around her. Her teeth chattered so violently she could barely speak. "I spilled wine on Amelia's dress. It was an accident. They said I needed time to think about respect for other people's property." As I rubbed her ice-cold hands between mine, I noticed purple bruises circling her wrists like bracelets. Her cheekbones protruded sharply under pallid skin, and a fading yellowish bruise shadowed her jaw. "How long have you been out here?" I demanded, professional assessment mixing with maternal panic. "Since last night," she whispered. "After Christmas Eve dinner." Over 24 hours in freezing temperatures with no proper clothing or heating. As a nurse, I knew she was in danger of severe hypothermia, possibly organ damage. "They do this often?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Lily nodded weakly. "Whenever I embarrass them, it's the family way of teaching discipline." Her voice had a rehearsed quality as though repeating words she'd been told many times. Fury unlike anything I'd ever experienced coursed through my veins, temporarily burning away my fear. I wrapped my scarf around her head and my gloves over her blue-tinged hands. Then I helped her to her feet, but her legs buckled immediately. Without hesitation, I scooped my adult daughter into my arms. She had always been slender, but now she weighed almost nothing. I carried her exactly as I had when she was a child, waking with nightmares, her head tucked against my shoulder, my arms secure around her trembling body. "We're going inside," I told her firmly. "Right now." I kicked the back door open with my foot, unable to knock while carrying Lily. We entered through what appeared to be a mudroom, then a large gourmet kitchen. The sounds of celebration grew louder as I carried my daughter toward the living room I had glimpsed from outside. When I stepped into the doorway, conversation stopped abruptly. 12 pairs of eyes turned to stare at us. The disheveled older woman in a snow-covered sweater carrying a half-conscious younger woman wrapped in a coat. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved or spoke. Then Jackson set down his champagne glass and stepped forward. "Wanda, what a surprise," he said, his voice perfectly modulated to convey pleasant shock rather than the alarm that flashed in his eyes. "We weren't expecting you." "Clearly not." I replied, my voice like ice. "Would someone like to explain why my daughter was locked in an unheated shed during a blizzard?" Eleanor rose gracefully from her armchair, her face arranging itself into concerned lines that didn't match the calculation in her eyes. "Oh dear, you found Lily during her reflection time," she said smoothly. "She just needed to cool down after a little incident last night. We were about to bring her in, weren't we, William?" William nodded, clearing his throat. "Family discipline is a private matter, Wanda. I'm sure as a single parent you had your own methods, but in our family we have traditions for handling behavioral issues." Jackson approached, arms outstretched as if to take Lily from me. "I'll take her upstairs to rest. She gets emotional sometimes and needs these quiet periods to center herself." I stepped backward, tightening my grip on my daughter. "Don't you dare touch her," I said, my voice emerging in the authoritative tone I'd used for decades as a nurse, dealing with difficult situations. "She has moderate to severe hypothermia. Her body temperature is dangerously low, her extremities are showing signs of frostbite, and she's severely dehydrated." I looked directly at Amelia, who was shifting uncomfortably on the sofa. "Did the wine stain come out of your dress? I hope it was worth almost killing my daughter over." "That's ridiculous," Jackson scoffed, but I noticed several guests exchanging uncomfortable glances. "Lily has these episodes. She exaggerates for attention. Tell them, honey." He directed this last comment at Lily, whose shivering had intensified. She didn't respond, her eyes unfocused. "She needs a hospital," I stated firmly. "Absolutely not," Eleanor interjected. "We handle family matters privately. The Prestons have maintained their reputation for 4 generations by keeping personal issues within these walls." "What Eleanor means," William added with a thin smile, "is that we're more than capable of caring for Lily here, and it would be unfortunate to create unnecessary concern with neighbors or community members due to a misunderstanding." I recognized the veiled threat. These people had power in this town, connections that could make things difficult if I caused a scene. "This isn't a misunderstanding," I said clearly, making sure everyone in the room could hear me. "This is abuse. Physical and psychological abuse. And if you think your family name will protect you from the consequences of locking a woman in freezing temperatures overnight, you're mistaken. Lily stirred against me, her voice barely audible. It's true, Mom. This isn't the first time. When I burn dinner when I say the wrong thing to Jackson's clients, when I wear something Eleanor doesn't approve of, there's always some punishment. Jackson's face darkened. Shut up, Lily. You're confused from being in the cold. No, came a surprising voice. Amelia had risen from the sofa, her face pale beneath her perfect makeup. She's not confused. They did the same to me growing up. The shed, the cellar, the attic in summer when it was like an oven. Eleanor gasped. Amelia, how dare you air our private family business in front of guests? I'm calling 911, I announced, shifting Lily's weight to reach for my phone. She needs medical attention now. Jackson moved with unexpected speed, grabbing my arm. You're not calling anyone. William stood, his voice dropping to a menacing tone. Think carefully, Wanda. We have friends in the police department, the hospital board, the courts. One phone call from me can ensure you never see Lily again. But they had miscalculated. They assumed I was afraid of their power, their connections, their wealth. They didn't understand that there is no force on earth more dangerous than a mother protecting her child. Real family doesn't torture each other and call it tradition, I said, my voice carrying through the now silent room. Real family protects each other, supports each other, loves unconditionally. What you people have is a cult of cruelty disguised as family values. I looked at each guest in turn. And all of you who sat here celebrating while knowing a woman was freezing just yards away, you're complicit in this abuse. Amelia stepped closer to us, tears streaming down her face. She's right. I've been complicit too long. What we do in this family isn't normal. It isn't right. Eleanor slapped her daughter hard across the face. Ungrateful child. After everything we've given you. That was enough. I set Lily gently on a nearby chair, pulled out my phone, and dialed 911. No. Jackson lunged toward me. I had taken self-defense classes years ago as part of hospital safety training. Nurses often face volatile situations, and my instructor had emphasized that our greatest advantage was that people rarely expect us to fight back effectively. When Jackson grabbed for my phone, I sidestepped and used his momentum to push him off balance. He stumbled into the Christmas tree, sending ornaments crashing to the floor. I need police and an ambulance at 47 Oak Ridge Lane. I spoke clearly into the phone while keeping my eyes on Jackson, who was regaining his balance. I have a woman with severe hypothermia who's been held against her will. William moved toward the phone in my hand, but I raised my voice. The Preston family has locked my daughter outside in freezing temperatures for over 24 hours as punishment. Yes, I'll stay on the line. Chaos erupted. Eleanor began shrieking about lies and family reputation. William threatened lawsuits and ruination. Several guests hurriedly gathered their belongings, clearly wanting no part of what was unfolding. Amelia stood frozen, her hand to her reddened cheek, looking like she might finally be waking from a lifelong nightmare. Jackson made another move toward me, but I positioned myself between him and Lily. Touch either of us and assault charges get added to the report. I helped Lily to her feet, supporting her weight against me. We're leaving now. The police can speak with us outside. You can't take my wife. Jackson snarled, his charming facade completely evaporated. Watch me, I replied, moving steadily toward the door with Lily. Eleanor followed us, her voice switching between threats and sudden saccharine concern. Lily, dear, you're confused. You know we love you. This is just a misunderstanding that we can work out privately. When we reached the front door, William pulled his car keys from his pocket. I'll block the driveway. You're not going anywhere until we resolve this our way." But he was too late. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Living in an exclusive neighborhood had its disadvantages. Police response time was excellent. 2 patrol cars pulled up as we reached my vehicle. William immediately transformed his threatening demeanor, replaced by the dignified community leader persona. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. My daughter-in-law is having a mental health episode, and her mother is unfortunately escalating the situation." The older male officer seemed to recognize William, nodding deferentially. My heart sank. Maybe they did have the connections they claimed. But the younger female officer approached us directly, her experienced eyes taking in Lily's condition. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Lily trembled against me, not just from cold now, but from fear. This was the moment of truth. Would she tell the truth or return to her abusers? "She locked me in the shed all night because I spilled wine." Lily said, her voice stronger than it had been since I found her. "It's not the first time. I need help." The female officer's expression hardened. "Let's get you in the warm car, and I'd like to speak with you privately." While Lily sat in the patrol car with the officer, I waited nearby, watching as Jackson and his parents presented their version of events to the male officer. They were convincing. Concerned, reasonable, portraying Lily as unstable and me as an interfering mother. After what felt like an eternity, the female officer emerged from the car and conferred briefly with her partner. His demeanor changed as she spoke, glancing back at the Preston family with new scrutiny. The female officer approached me. "Your daughter has given me a statement about ongoing abuse. We'll need formal statements from both of you, but for now, we're going to escort you to the town line. Do you have somewhere safe to go?" "A motel for tonight, then my home in Minnesota," I replied, relief washing over me. "He's going to be angry," the officer said quietly. "Men like that always are when they lose control. Stay vigilant and contact the local police wherever you stop tonight." Jackson watched with cold fury as we prepared to leave. "This isn't over," he called. "She's my wife. She belongs here." "No human being belongs to another," I replied simply, "and this is very much over." With a police escort leading the way, I drove Lily away from the house that had become her prison. Only when we passed the town line sign and the patrol car flashed its lights in farewell did she break down completely. Great heaving sobs racked her thin body as years of pent-up fear and pain poured out. Between tears, the full story emerged. How Jackson had systematically isolated her, controlling every aspect of her life, from finances to friendships. "It started with small things," she whispered as we drove through the snowy night. Checking my phone, questioning who I was texting, then criticizing my clothes, my friends, my job. He said my marketing career was embarrassing compared to his finance work. Eventually, it was easier to quit than face his comments every day. His family had encouraged and reinforced the abuse. Eleanor taught him the discipline techniques her own parents had used on her children. William provided financial control, ensuring Lily had no access to money of her own. "The first time they put me in the shed was 3 months after the wedding," she continued. "I forgot to pre-warm William's dinner plate. Eleanor said I needed to learn proper hosting etiquette. It was only for an hour that time, but each time got longer." By the time we reached a highway motel 2 hours away, Lily had shared enough to make my heart break 1,000 times over. I checked us in, helped her into a warm shower, and called a doctor friend for advice on treating her hypothermia symptoms. That night, as she finally fell into exhausted sleep, I made calls. to my neighbor to check on my house, to a lawyer friend for domestic violence resources, to my old nursing supervisor who had connections in social services. I was building a safety net for my daughter, one phone call at a time. As I watched her sleeping, I made a silent promise. The people who had hurt her would never get the chance to do so again. Not while I had breath in my body. The first week at my home in Minnesota was focused entirely on Lily's physical recovery. She slept up to 16 hours a day, her body healing from prolonged stress and neglect. I prepared the nourishing meals I had always made when she was sick as a child. Homemade chicken soup, protein-rich smoothies, and the oatmeal with brown sugar and cinnamon she had loved since childhood. I called her workplace in Chicago, speaking with her former supervisor, who was shocked by her sudden departure months earlier. Jackson had told them Lily resigned to focus on family priorities. Her boss was sympathetic and promised to keep our conversation confidential while they explored possibilities for her return when she was ready. Jackson's communications oscillated between extremes. Text messages and voicemails swung from threats, "I'll destroy you both," to desperate apologies, "I love you," "I'll change, we can fix this," to attempts at manipulation. "Your mother is turning you against me. She always hated me." I documented everything on the advice of the domestic violence attorney I consulted. The first doctor's appointment revealed the physical toll of Lily's marriage. She was severely undernourished, showing signs of vitamin deficiencies. Healing bruises marked her arms and torso. The doctor gently asked if she wanted to file a formal medical report of abuse. Lily nodded, silent tears streaming down her face. "I feel so stupid," she confessed later. "I'm educated. I had a good career. How did I let this happen to me?" Abuse doesn't discriminate based on intelligence or success. I told her, repeating what the domestic violence advocate had explained. "It happens gradually. By the time you recognize the pattern, you're already trapped." My nursing colleague Judith connected us with an excellent therapist specializing in domestic abuse recovery. After Lily's first session, she seemed both drained and somehow lighter. "She said it wasn't my fault," she told me, wonder in her voice. She said Jackson and his family are textbook abusers, and that stronger boundaries wouldn't have fixed anything because the problem was in them, not in me. We filed for a restraining order, and within days Jackson violated it by showing up at my house. The police responded quickly, and seeing him in the back of a patrol car, his expensive suit and cultivated charm useless against the weight of legal documentation, was the first time I saw Lily stand a little straighter, a flicker of her old confidence returning. The support group meetings were initially difficult for her. Sitting in a circle with other survivors, some from wealthy backgrounds like Jackson's, others from more modest circumstances, Lily struggled to share her story, but listening to others broke something open in her. "They all have different stories," she told me afterward, "but the patterns are so similar. The isolation, the criticism, the moments of kindness that keep you hoping things will get better." One particularly challenging day came when a thick cream envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a handwritten letter from Eleanor filled with manipulative language designed to pull Lily back into their control. "Families must address disagreements privately," she wrote. "We only ever wanted what was best for you to help you become worthy of the Preston name. Jackson is devastated by your absence. This separation is breaking his heart." Lily read it once, then handed it silently to me. That night, a Christmas song played on the radio, "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." And she suddenly began shaking, wrapping her arms around herself in a gesture that broke my heart. It had been playing during one of her punishments, she later explained. I learned from her therapist how to support her through these episodes. Not to touch her without permission, to speak calmly and remind her where she was, to give her space when she needed it. 2 weeks after our escape, Lily laughed genuinely for the first time. We were baking cookies, reinstating our Sunday tradition, and I accidentally dropped an entire bag of flour covering myself from head to toe in white powder. Her laughter, rusty at first, then gaining strength, was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. "I never thought I'd feel happy again," she admitted later. "There were days in that house when I thought I might die there, that the shed would eventually be the end of me during some winter punishment." The process of retrieving Lily's personal belongings was a grueling ordeal. With a police escort and her lawyer present, we returned to Vermont. Jackson was legally required to be absent, but Eleanor and William stood watching from the doorway, their faces masks of cold fury. Many of Lily's cherished possessions had been destroyed. Photo albums from her childhood torn apart, clothing cut to shreds, even her college diploma shattered in its frame. But we found something unexpected in a shoebox hidden in the back of her closet. A diary she had kept secretly documenting incidents of abuse with dates and details. "I started writing things down when I began to doubt my own memory," she explained. "Jackson would tell me things hadn't happened the way I remembered, that I was exaggerating or making things up. I needed to prove to myself I wasn't crazy." That diary became crucial evidence in the legal proceedings that followed. Slowly, Lily began reconnecting with old friends Jackson had forced her to cut contact with. Many responded with immediate support, having been concerned by her sudden disappearance from their lives. Some admitted they had suspected problems but didn't know how to help. Her college roommate Amanda flew in from Seattle to spend a weekend with us. Watching them reminisce about school days and rebuild their friendship showed me another piece of my daughter returning to life. 3 months after Christmas, Lily spoke at her support group's open meeting, an event where survivors shared their stories with the public to raise awareness about domestic violence. Her voice shook at first, but grew stronger with each word. "I thought I was alone," she told the audience. "I thought no one would believe that the charming, successful man I married could be so cruel behind closed doors. I thought his family's reputation and connections meant I had nowhere to turn. I was wrong." Jackson's family attempted to damage Lily's reputation in response. Anonymous comments appeared on local news websites calling her mentally unstable. Acquaintances received calls suggesting she had substance abuse problems. But for every attempt at character assassination, there were 2 people standing firmly in Lily's corner: myself, her support group, her reunited friends, and even a few of Jackson's relatives who had witnessed the family's traditions and been disturbed by them. Through it all, Lily and I stood together, weathering each storm of intimidation and gossip. The frightened, shivering woman I had carried from that garden shed was slowly being replaced by someone new. Not the carefree daughter of before, but a woman with hard-won wisdom and growing strength. 1 year after that terrible Christmas, Lily stood in a courtroom facing Jackson for their final divorce hearing. She had chosen to return to Chicago 3 months earlier, accepting a position with her former marketing firm, who welcomed her expertise back eagerly. "Are you ready?" I asked her that morning as we prepared for court. She straightened her shoulders and nodded. "More than ready." The transformation in my daughter over that year was remarkable. The physical changes were obvious. Healthy weight restored clear skin, alert eyes. But the internal changes were what truly mattered. She moved with purpose, now spoke with confidence, and had reclaimed her decision-making power. During the hearing, Jackson's attorney attempted to portray Lily as unstable and attention-seeking, but her testimony, supported by medical records, police reports, and her meticulously kept diary, painted the undeniable picture of systematic abuse. When the judge delivered his ruling, his words were scathing. This court finds the behavior of Mr. Preston and his family to be reprehensible. No human being deserves to be treated as property or subjected to discipline through methods that amount to torture. The restraining order against Mr. Preston and his parents will remain permanent. Despite the Preston family's attempts to hide assets, Lily's attorney had uncovered enough to secure a fair settlement. Not that money was Lily's primary concern. Her safety and freedom were what mattered most. As we left the courthouse, Lily took a deep breath of spring air. "I want to move somewhere new," she said. "Not back to Chicago. Somewhere I can start completely fresh." I supported her decision while ensuring we maintained our close connection. 2 months later, I helped her move into a bright apartment in Seattle, where Amanda had helped her network for a new position with a progressive marketing agency. We spent a week decorating her new space, making it completely her own. No trace of the cold, formal aesthetic Jackson had demanded. Instead, warm colors, comfortable furniture, and photos of people who truly loved her filled the rooms. "This is the first place that's been truly mine since before I met him," she said, standing in her completed living room. "I get to choose everything. The blue walls, the mismatched throw pillows, the refrigerator magnets that Eleanor would have hated." Lily quickly built a new support network in Seattle. She continued therapy and joined a local group for abuse survivors. 6 months after her move, she began volunteering at a women's shelter, using her marketing skills to help the organization raise funds and awareness. "I never thought my experience could help others," she told me during one of our now regular Sunday video calls. "But when I speak with women just leaving abusive situations, I can genuinely tell them there's hope, that this terrible chapter doesn't define their whole story." Our new holiday traditions evolved organically. That year, Lily flew me to Seattle for Christmas. No elaborate decorations, no formal dinner with fine china. Instead, we made pizza in her kitchen, watched old movies in pajamas, and exchanged gifts that were meaningful rather than expensive. I watched with pride as my daughter helped another young woman recognize the warning signs in her own relationship. Sarah was Lily's coworker, gradually revealing details of her boyfriend's controlling behavior during lunch conversations. Lily gently helped her see the pattern without judgment. "She left him last week," Lily told me. "Said our talks made her realize she deserved better. That's one more woman who won't end up locked in a shed on Christmas." As for Jackson's family, their social standing suffered once the truth emerged. Several former friends reached out to Lily with stories of witnessing concerning behavior over the years. Amelia had moved to California, breaking ties with her parents and occasionally exchanging cautious emails with Lily. Their shared experience created an unusual bond. Not quite friendship, but mutual understanding. That second Christmas after the rescue, I sat in Lily's warm kitchen watching her confidently prepare our traditional holiday cookies. The transformation wasn't just in her renewed physical health or the absence of fear in her movements. It was in the way she looked forward, rather than over her shoulder made decisions without seeking approval and recognized her own worth. "You know," she said, sliding a perfect batch of gingerbread from the oven, "I never properly thanked you for literally carrying me out of there that day." "You never need to thank me for that," I replied. "That's what real family does." She nodded thoughtfully. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said that night about real family protecting each other. I think the most important thing I've learned is that love never requires pain. Care never demands suffering. Family should be where you feel safest, not where you're most afraid." As we sat by her small Christmas tree that evening, sharing cookies and memories, I reflected on the journey we'd traveled. From the moment I found her shivering in that shed to this peaceful night in her own safe home, Every step had been toward healing. "What would you tell someone who's where you were 2 years ago?" I asked her. "That isolation is the abuser's most powerful weapon." She answered without hesitation. "That no matter how much they try to convince you you're alone, you're not. That reaching for help isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing you can do." I looked at my daughter, strong, compassionate, and free, and felt profound gratitude. The darkest Christmas of our lives had led eventually to the light. If you're watching this and something in our story resonates with you, please know you're not alone. There is help available and you deserve safety and peace. Have you ever had to trust your instincts to protect someone you love? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe to support these important conversations. Remember that sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is simply believing someone's truth and standing beside them when they need us most.